So I have had the Hoka Rocket X2 for quite a while now. I actually never put out my initial review, quite frankly, because I had some issues with it at the start. However, I now have over 100 miles in the X2. So let's find out how they have held up and if that issue I had has resolved itself. Well, hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I want to let you know that Hoka did send the Rocket X2 to me a long time ago to review, and they're not going to see this footage ahead of time. They're not going to preview it. I'm going to give you my completely honest opinion. Well, let's briefly go over the stats of the Hoka Rocket X2. First off, it is a neutral road racing shoe. So as you would expect, it is very rigid and stiff from that carbon fiber plate. And as for the stack height, for the men's in the rear, it comes in at 40 millimeters, and in the front, 35 millimeters for that 5 millimeter drop. And for the weight, my men's size 11 weighed in at 8.6 ounces or 246 grams. Now that is just a little bit heavier than the original Rocket X here, but as you can see from looking at these, they are completely different shoes. And overall, 8.6 ounces in a size 11 is a pretty good weight. The sizing of the Rocket X2 is pretty typical for Hoka. My size 11 fit just about the same as other Hokas in size 11 as far as the length is concerned. We'll get more specific here in just a moment when we talk about the upper. But before we get any further, please scroll down, give the video a thumbs up, click that thumbs up button. It does help out a lot. I would really appreciate that. Maybe consider clicking the subscribe button as well, and you'll see more videos like this in the future. The upper of the Rocket X2 here is a technical synthetic mesh material that is really pretty stiff and doesn't have much stretch to it. It's pretty stiff. And as for the breathability, it is one of the more breathable shoes that I have tested. Take a look at the tissue test. You can see even when the hair dryer is on low, that tissue still came up very quickly and stayed up. And when I switched that hair dryer to high, that tissue just about came out of the shoe. It came up so quickly, stayed up. It is certainly a very breathable shoe. So keep that in mind on cold days when you're making your sock choice. The toe box of the Rocket X2 is a bit more snug than some Hokas, but I mean, it is a racing shoe, so that's generally what you want, a more snug, more secure fitting shoe. Now I do tend to have a average to narrow width foot, and it fits mine just fine. I didn't really have any issues with rubbing on the pinky or on the big toe of this, but if you have a little bit wider of a forefoot, this might be a little snug, so you might want to go up about a half a size. Moving up to the midfoot of the shoe here, it again lets you know right away that it is a racing shoe. That internal midfoot cage here really is designed to give you a very secure midfoot lockdown. You can really see this midfoot cage here. It's really these, basically like a TPU material. It's on the inside of this upper here. And as you cinch these laces down, it pulls that nice and tight and very securely over the midfoot of your foot. Really, it does give you a very good lockdown. As for the lacing system, it's, pretty typical Hoka lay flat laces. They tie very well. They don't come untied. The lacing eyelets here are very stiff and rigid, and as you pull those tighter, like I mentioned, it really does cinch that upper very securely on your foot. It really just, it's given me at least a very good lockdown. The tongue on the Rocket X2 is very thin, and there are some cutouts in it to increase that breathability and I guess reduce weight just a little bit. There are some very sleek and thin gussets on the sides of the shoe, both sides of that tongue, to keep it from migrating around and just keep everything where it should be. With all of that said, this tongue is very thin, and it's one of the issues I had at the beginning was I had a little bit of discomfort over the top of my foot from cinching those laces down. They kind of dug into the top of my foot. However, I did find that I really didn't need to tie the shoes as tight, and I could still get a very secure lockdown with those laces being a little looser than I had originally thought. But the biggest issue I had with the Rocket X2 was in this heel, the heel collar here. As you can see, it is very thin. There's not much to it. Again, this is a racing shoe, but the very minimal heel bumpers or a little bit of cushioning on the medial and the lateral sides of the shoe here are very, very minimal. It's not going to give you much comfort whatsoever. In fact, the very first time that I wore these, it was like a 6.5, 7 mile run. I was only about 1.5 miles into that run, and I already started to feel some hot spots and some rubbing in my heel. I continued my run, and at the end I did find I had some pretty significant blisters on both heels. I tried taping my heels on future runs with Leuco tape, with KT tape, and I still had a little bit of discomfort and some hot spots in this heel. I mean, you can see the way that it is angled. It goes very sharply up, and there's kind of a little bit of a bump out right here. You can feel that internally. There's really no padding on this heel whatsoever. It is very, very bare bones. And with it being so stiff and rigid, I did find, and I still find, it's very difficult to get your foot into the shoe. I have it laced the way I like it, except for the very top lace is loosened to get my foot in and out. If I want to get my foot in, This is very rigid. It doesn't give you much flexibility to slide your foot in, tie it. You really have to loosen this quite a bit to get your foot to slide in nicely and then retie the laces and get them cinched well. Eventually though, that discomfort did go away. I continued to try to tape my heels for a number of miles, and eventually I stopped taping them and it just kind of went away. I did not have that discomfort. I can now do speed work in these shoes without taping. I don't get hot spots. It feels okay for, an hour and a half run. So in my opinion, this is a shoe that you would want to really break in before you take it out to race day. This isn't one of those open it up, fresh out of the box, go run your race kind of shoes. At least not for me. You're probably going to want to get, I would say, at least about 50 miles in this shoe to kind of break in that heel a little bit. Overall though, the upper of the Rocket X2 does a pretty solid job. For me personally, I would just like to see a little bit more cushion and comfort in this heel. The midsole of the Rocket X2 is really where this shoe shines. It's made of Hoka's ProFly X construction and features a dual layer of that awesome PIBA midsole foam. It is very bouncy and resilient, and it also features a completely redesigned carbon fiber plate as well as the geometry of the shoe. The Rocket X2 does still have the early stage meta rocker, which really does help you as you transition through your gait cycle running at faster paces. The redesigned carbon fiber plate is sandwiched between two layers of that PIBA foam. If you look underneath in this cutout, you can see that the carbon plate is really up pretty high into the midsole of the shoe, and then it curves down and then it comes up just a little bit, almost in like an S shape. And when I first put these on straight out of the box and walking around the house, I could instantly feel how bouncy and springy they felt, and they just felt like they were going to be a really fast shoe. Now the rear of the shoe is definitely a bit softer and has more bounce than the front, which tends to be a little bit more firm and have a little bit more responsiveness. This is a shoe that just seems to get more propulsive the faster you run. When I was doing some 400 meter and 800 meter workouts on the track, I could really feel the spring in my step as I was going through my gait cycle. It just felt fast. However, it's good to know that they did still feel very stable when running at faster paces, and it was just fun. It was a fun shoe to run in. The PIBA midsole has plenty of that great cushion for the marathon distance. I would have no issues racing these in a marathon, and honestly, I would even take these up to a 50-kilometer ultra marathon on the roads. They are that comfortable. Underneath of the shoe in the midsole, you can see there is a large cutout that I showed you just a moment ago. Sometimes that does get a rock stuck in it if you're running over a surface with some rocks on it, so just be mindful of that. However, even at slower paces, let's say you're doing a warm-up to go do your speed work session, whatever that may be, it feels really comfortable. It's not an awkward shoe to run in at a slow pace. Now, I do have some concerns of the durability of the midsole. Now, I've got about 110, 112 miles in these shoes so far. And on the medial side of the shoe here, up in the forefoot, you can see there's this piece that's really pulled away already. It's kind of separated and torn. Now, maybe I caught my foot on something and it pulled it apart. I'm not sure, but it's definitely a concern. Overall though, I think Hoka really nailed it with the midsole of the Rocket X2. It is fun, it is responsive, and it's fast. The Rocket X2's outsole is Hoka's Durabrasion rubber, and it's not over the entirety of the outsole here as you can see, but it's in all the right places that are high wear zones. The grip has been great on all paved surfaces, even on an old school cinder type track or on a very light urban trail that I've taken these on. It's provided excellent traction. The wear on the rubber also seems really good for having over 100 miles in these shoes. I'm not seeing much wear all to the Durabrasion rubber, maybe just a touch right here, but I am seeing a little wear to a little bit of the exposed PIBA midsole. A little bit of wear there. Overall, that Durabrasion rubber on the Rocket X2 does a great job of providing grip. So the Hoka Rocket X2 retails for $250 US. Yes, that is a lot of money for a shoe. However, it's very competitively priced with other shoes in this class, and at that price you are getting a very capable, competitive marathon racing shoe. Well, the bottom line of the Hoka Rocket X2 is it is a completely different shoe than the original Hoka Rocket X here, which I wore for this marathon right here, but most of those improvements and changes are amazing. The Rocket X2 is a fast and fun shoe to run in. It's one of those shoes that makes you feel fast. It has great cushioning for the marathon distance and an incredible amount of response and propulsion underfoot. Really, the only thing that I would change in the Rocket X2 is the heel collar. Maybe I would just like to see a little more comfort back there. But overall, it's a fantastic racing shoe. And if you are looking for a shoe to race your next marathon in, half marathon, 10K, and you're looking to PR, then I can certainly recommend checking out the Hoka Rocket X2. And if you do want to check those out, be sure to take a look in the description below. There is a link to go check out the Rocket X2s, and it does help support the channel, but it doesn't cost you anything. Now, I know this shoe has been out for quite a long time. There's another marathon racing shoe, the Cielo X1, that's been released from Hoka. It's a fair bit heavier, but I think this is still a fantastic option. But let me know below in the comments, have you tested the Rocket X2? What did you think? Did you try the Rocket X like I did, and did you think this was an improvement? Let everybody know below in the comments. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate you. If you haven't seen it already and you're looking for another shoe with a carbon plate in it from Hoka, take a look at the Carbon X3 review on your screen. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.